Now, as young children, okay, we talked about people are uncertain. As young children, I will tell you one word that will transform your leadership abilities and remember we talked about it being very complicated and there's a lot of study around it. One thing you can do to be effective in leadership, just be curious. Okay? Be curious. It's all you got to do. And what does this do? Right? Being curious forces us to look outside ourselves, be less concerned with, oh, my budget's due, I got to get this report, I got to get these rented, I got to get this done. Okay? All about me in my little square. Right? My square's not much. Okay? The whole world is out there. That's where the magic happens. It doesn't happen right in, I don't occupy much. There's nothing I can do to solve problems. Okay? So when we're curious, it forces us to look at other people's challenges. And it's not about going around and helping people, like, what can I do to help you? That's great. Okay? If it's sales, you want to drive more sales, don't tell them, get more rents. Be curious. How are your sales calls going? How are your tours going? You know, how did that meeting go with the client? That's just being curious. And guess what? When you're curious about others, you're focused on them. How do we feel when we're valued or we're listened to or acknowledged? We feel worse, or more motivated, or less. Wow, the CEO came down and asked me how my day was or how that report's coming. Okay? So the outcome is leadership. Being curious is what you need to do. Outcome, the result is leadership. Okay? And I mean, it's so simple. And if you've got a new manager, just be curious about others. Be curious about your residents. You know, all those maintenance teams that are doing that, right? They're curious, they're talking, then people don't move because there's this relationship and connection. People feel valued. It's very important. Listening is the best way to do that. It's the single most difficult thing to do, not only for me, just because I speak. It's kind of, you know, and listening is something that we're really not trained to do. The idea of communication itself, and we'll talk about this in a minute, is that we haven't really studied communication like we've done the math, the sciences, the languages for years. Communication has really only been studied since like 1960. And it was really, communication is saying stuff. Okay? So where do we learn to communicate? Where do we learn to listen? From our friends, whoever we associate with, our parents. There can be some pretty crappy people we've learned from. Crappy bosses. And that's what we do. That's what we know. That's what we're familiar with. That's what we've experienced. Okay? We talked about communication shifting from what's being sent, what I say, to what's being received by you. That's communication. What are you hearing? What are you responding to? Okay? And you know what's really challenging with this is the channels are ever changing. Now we've got to manage social networks, multiple profiles, and all kinds of things. So not only is it already difficult, just one-on-one, it's incredibly challenging because the game's changing on us while we're going. I've drawn this analogy, or not analogy, it's a graph. Basically, you have, this is time, over time, and then you have the chart coming up, which is knowledge, right? So most of us go in our career, we just get better and better and better and better. You know, we get smarter, we get better jobs or whatever. We just keep reading, and it looks kind of like this kind of gradual incline over our career. The problem is technology and the world has gone like this, okay? And there's this huge gap, okay? And that huge gap is opportunity for those that can figure out how to respond to it in a simple way.